Well, hi again, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome back to the first Inside Furman Athletics program of 2022. I am Dan Scott, voice of the Paladins, director of broadcasting here at Furman. Hoping that your Christmas season went well. You made it through the New Year exchange unharmed and unscathed, and we're looking forward to getting back to doing this on a weekly basis, taking you inside the athletic department here at Furman and talking about multiple sports with multiple people, which will also include once a month athletic director Jason Donnelly sitting in with us as he did in the fall. Our guest on this first edition of 2022 is women's golf coach Jeff Hull, who you see here on screen. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, too. I trust that everything went well over the holidays for you and your family.
Yeah, it was great. Didn't do much. Just kind of hung out and relaxed and kind of rejuvenate for the spring.
Aren't those sometimes the best breaks where you really just don't do much of anything?
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, it was much needed for sure.
And not just from a physical standpoint, but from kind of letting your mind rest for a little while.
Well, yeah, because we got back into the season and we hadn't been recruiting for a long time, and then we had a full summer of recruiting, then we had a full fall of golf, and getting the kids ready to head home, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, need a little break for sure. So it was nice.
As we got back to doing this on a regular basis in the fall, I tried to ask every coach this, and since this is our first opportunity to talk with you, I'll ask you how you were able to kind of keep the ship afloat during COVID when you couldn't go out and see golfers. They couldn't come onto campus. You were obviously, like all of us, going through something we'd never gone through before, and to a certain extent still battling it, even though we've been somewhat close to normal now for a while. But how were you able to negotiate something that you had never had to negotiate before?
It was interesting. I actually felt like we did a very good job recruiting because, you had to learn some new things. Zoom was new to all of us.
Right.
And recruiting on Zoom actually became very beneficial. I felt like I built better relationships with my recruits than maybe I had in the past because you had to engage them. You had to get them online. You had to talk with them. So I actually saw it a little bit as a positive. We didn't get to see them play as much as we'd like to, but the great thing with golf is they were still playing, and you can see scores.
Right.
So when you see good scores and you know the kind of kid that you're dealing with and their families, I thought it was actually very good.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I think you're the first coach who's kind of looked at it from that standpoint. It's almost, if I'm hearing you correctly, like it forced you to have deeper, more meaningful conversations than you would normally have had if you were just bringing them to campus and touring around.
Yeah, and again, because we couldn't go out and see them.
Right.
We couldn't watch them play. We had to keep ourselves visible to them. They needed to be visible to us. So there was a lot of back and forth. Like I said, I felt like there was just a lot of really good, meaningful conversations. And now, Zoom and FaceTime and those technologies are there, and it really does help, with the recruiting. Because I'm an old guy. I don't, technology's a little more difficult for me. So I had to learn kind of like everybody else.
So the other question I usually follow that up with is, what did you learn about yourself during all of this process? It sounds like you've found a tool that you're going to continue to use, even though you can still go out, or now you can go back out and see people again.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very open. I have no problem talking with people. So, whether it's in person or on, Zoom or some other technology, I don't have a problem with that. It does make it a lot easier. To be able to watch somebody play golf and then maybe, have a face-to-face with them where you don't actually have to be with them.
And then, like every other coach on campus, once you got to the summer and leading into the fall and then your fall season, you had some sophomores who were on your team from the previous year who had never gone through what you would call a normal season, right? And so it was almost like going through their freshman year all over again.
Yeah, and that was the bad part was, the freshmen, they didn't really get to have a good first year. I mean, it was very difficult, and, everybody was masked, everybody was distanced, when we traveled, we had to take 2 vans for 7 people, separate rooms. So, I mean, it was, couldn't eat out. We had to, so it was tough. And so, and even our freshman this year, she really didn't even get to have a good official visit.
Right.
So we tried to do some things this year to make it even better in the fall, make it more fun because, the last fall and the spring were just tough.
I was growing up, the older people always made sure to point out at some juncture that the world ain't fair. And athletes at this campus and campuses all over this country kind of found that out a little bit, didn't they?
Yeah, and as I always just tried to point out, I mean, we all had to live through it, and I think we all, if we could go back, we would probably do some things different. We'd never been through this situation before. So, but I said, at the end of the day, we're still very fortunate with what we have and what we're doing, and nobody's sick and nobody's, we still had so many things to be grateful for, because, people around the world were dying, and people were losing jobs, and there was just a whole lot of negative. So I said, at the end of the day, we're still very fortunate to do what we do.
And it's amazing, especially when you watch what went on when athletics returned in the fall and winter of 2020. Furman did not lose one single event because somebody on our campus or multiple people on our campus tested positive and we couldn't field a team in any sport. Any games we lost was because of somebody else. And that's really remarkable if you think about it for a school this size, committing the resources to doing the testing and everything that was required to do that, and then people willingly following those protocols so they'd have a chance to compete, even if it was very inconvenient. Still, to see how that all played out was amazing.
Yeah, and again, I think it was good practice for the next couple months, because it looks like we're in a little bit of that struggle again, and so we never know what could happen. So as I tell them, I said, always be prepared, for the worst, because you never know,
right?
And so you've just got to always be prepared and be ready to go. And so hopefully we never have to go through any of that again. But I think if we do, we're all much more prepared to handle it.
So having said all of that as kind of a precursor to this fall, when you got to operate close to normal, not 100% back to the way it was, but at least close to normal, how was that fall? How was it when kind of the chains came off a little bit?
Oh, it was amazing. And I've told everybody who, during our tournament or people who would ask, I'm like, it was probably one of the most fun falls that we've had. We really tried hard to just get everybody together and really make sure the culture was strong. And, to be out there with the players, practicing in tournaments and traveling, it was just so much better. And I think, it's always better after adversity. And so, coming into the fall, that was our goal. We just wanted to be out there and know that we have a great opportunity to compete. And I think we had a great time in the fall.
I was going to ask, was part of that fun that you referenced having a greater appreciation for something that you may have consciously or subconsciously taken for granted before?
A little bit, but I think it was also just being able to do fun stuff.
Right.
We could do more things together as a group. We didn't have to worry about too much. So it was just a lot better.
Visiting with Jeff Hull, the women's golf coach here on Inside Furman Athletics. This women's golf program has just been, it's been incredible, for lack of a better term. I don't know that there are really enough superlatives to describe how good this program has been. And while we're in something of a dominant stretch now, the history of this program is such, Jeff, that it has been a top-notch program for a long time. And one of the things that came out just in the last month or so, the Southern Conference released its 100-year anniversary teams, and lo and behold, women's golf here at Furman was well represented.
Yeah, that was it's funny. I kind of didn't know about it until we saw it, and I'm looking through it, and obviously, a lot of the players that I've coached were on that team, and I kept wondering, I'm like, well, gosh, where is Beth and Betsy and Dottie and some of these players? Well, they weren't in the SoCon at that time,
right?
So that's why I was like, wow, that's weird. But so, a lot of good players got recognized, and obviously, the last several years we've had some outstanding, players, that made that team. So it was good to see.
But to have those three not on it because it, that kind of speaks to again how good this program has been. How was the fall?
Fall was good. We came in excited. We got to our first event and we played decent. And then we got to our home event, that couldn't have gone any better. We won in record fashion. Anna Morgan won the event in record fashion. I mean, she chipped in on the last hole to set the tournament record. She made a hole in one. She she made an eagle, and her mom was watching her, and her mom was like, "Well, I've never seen her make an eagle." And then and then she makes a hole in one. So it was really a special week. We got to do our family dinner again, which we hadn't done, the year before because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was outstanding. I think at the end of the day, we probably didn't finish off the fall as well as we wanted to. We didn't end the fall like we had hoped. But I think that also maybe lit a fire under them to work really hard in the off season and get ready for spring.
How does women's golf approach the fall versus the spring? Is one season more important than the other, or is it just two halves of the same season?
It's really just two halves of the same season. I mean, our championship season is the spring. I mean,
Right.
That's when our conference championship is, regionals and nationals.
Right.
But the fall actually has become as important or more important than the spring because it really sets you up from a ranking standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of you need to get into a good flow in the fall and have a decent ranking so that when you do go into the spring, you're in a very good position, to make regionals and then hopefully get to nationals.
Visiting with Jeff Hulls, we're talking women's golf here on Inside Furman Athletics, the return, our first show of 2022. And again, we'll be doing these on a weekly basis over the next 3 or 4 months. And each month will include one visit from Athletic Director Jason Donnelly. Tell me about some of the young ladies. You mentioned Anna Morgan, obviously, who played very well for you in the fall. How does the rest of your team stack up?
We're very balanced. You've got Sarah Eve-Rayom, who's a senior, and she's actually going to come back next year, COVID year. But she's from Canada and plays on the Canadian, team. She was our SoCon champ last year. And she just competed down in a really big event down in Florida and finished 7th. And, she's got just, tremendous ability. And I'm really looking for her. Kira Cox is our other senior from New York. She's kind of the queen of New York up there. She's won the AMs a few times up there and won the Connecticut AM this year. So, we were really looking for her to be a solid contributor in the spring. Sophia Burnett is a sophomore. She was one of the ones you were talking about that didn't really get to enjoy that freshman year like she should, but had an outstanding summer and played very solid, this fall. Caroline Crumrine, her fellow sophomore, from Wilmington, North Carolina, has played a couple times this fall, had some good rounds. And then Savannah Hilton, our freshman, contributed as well. So, we've got a small team this year. We only have 6. And so the good news this year is in the spring especially, and we did it in the fall, we traveled with 5. And then I was fortunate to get some individual spots in several of these tournaments. So we're actually going to travel with just about everybody to every tournament, which really does help with the culture, with the bonding, and kind of keeps everybody, together.
Of the 6 players, 4 of them are from the Carolinas.
Mm-hmm.
That speak to the talent level. Obviously, this is a place where you can play golf pretty much year round. Does that speak to the talent level? And that is that a normal roster breakdown for you?
Well, I think historically for us, and if you look at, when Kelly and I got here, there were no South Carolina kids, any Carolina kids. In fact, when we got here, the closest person distance-wise to campus was my former assistant, Laura DeMarco, and she was from Canada. So, there was people from everywhere.
Right.
And there's a ton of talent in the Southeast. And so we felt like we needed to go after, some of that talent. And so you look at players like Riona Harai, Natalie Srinivasan, from the Carolinas, and then, Anna Morgan, from the Carolinas, and then, all the kids on our roster this year. I mean, the kids in the Southeast especially know what Furman women's golf is, and so, I mean, it's just part of it. I mean, Anna's mom went to Furman, and so, it was kind of a dream school, I guess, for her as well. So when you get these players that understand what Furman is and how special the place is, we try to get those really good South Carolina kids.
Well, when you've got that kind of a fertile recruiting territory to go after, on one hand, people looking from the outside in would say, well, why would you go to Furman and not go to maybe a Power 5 school? But you just mentioned Furman's women's golf legacy is such that it carries a national name, and these great golfers from this region, I would imagine, have to take a look at this school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really just comes down to needs and what do we need? What does the player need? And hopefully, like you said, we are competing against, the big schools, especially in the Southeast. I mean, South Carolina's, been in the top 5 the last several years. Clemson's very solid. Georgia's very good. North Carolina, all the North Carolina schools. So, yeah, we're competing against the Power 5s, not just the SoCon.
Well, speaking of recruiting, it was announced not that long ago that you've signed 4 players for the upcoming season. Tell us about them.
Well, like I said, we kind of maybe took a different approach that, we had some needs and COVID was maybe a good year for us. We signed 4 players, which is the most I've had, since I've been here coming in. And it's interesting because next year I'm going to have 2 sets of sisters. So, Camila Burnett is coming in, and her sister Sophia is, they're both from the Bluffton area.
Right.
So excited to have her. And then Liza LePere, who is from New Orleans. She actually works with a good friend of mine over in New Orleans and a really good player. And then the twins, as I call them, the Johnson sisters, Faith and Chloe, they were my first 2 signees and, very talented players from Indiana. And it's funny because they say, well, who's better? And I'm like, they're kind of the same player. The rankings, they just kind of weave in and out. And there was one time I looked up and they were actually ranked right next to each other in the rankings. So it's like they're both very good. And so I'm really excited about the 4 players.
Were they determined that they were going to go to school together?
I think they wanted to.
Uh-huh.
It's very difficult in college, golf especially, to make that happen. But again, those were 2 people that I just, that recruiting process, it was just a really good situation. Had great conversations with them and their parents, and it just seemed to be the right fit.
Having the spots, having the fit, having that, if you got 2 really good golfers, I think that's the most important thing, whether they're sisters or not,
well,
right?
Yeah, and again, I would never recruit them that way unless they were both very talented.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that they were. And the same thing with Sophia, and her sister. I mean, it just so happened that they're both very talented players. So, and we really, like the family atmosphere, and we like, the families that we recruit. And so it's a lot of fun to get when everybody does get together at a tournament,
You mentioned that family dinner, and I know it's something that has been a tradition. You didn't get to do it 2 years ago last year because of COVID. You were able to do it this year. How important is that to the culture of your program?
I think it's incredibly important, because it's not just, the kids and their families. I invite, our support staff in as well. So, Jason, Rob, Jody, Aaron, everybody who's involved with our program, we invite into that. So then the parents also get to meet them and see how important they are to our success. And it's just nice. It's just great to get everybody together. The kids get up and talk, especially the seniors, they get to talk about their experience at Furman and what it means to them. And then the freshmen never know it, but they have to get up and say something. So it's kind of a little shock.
You spring that on them,
kind of spring it on them. Yeah. I think they kind of know in advance, but, we try to make it a little bit of a surprise.
Right. Well, that's great. I've been part of some other programs that have done things like that, whether it's at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year. And having those seniors stand up and give that testimony, not just about what the program has meant, but they can also share how they've grown and what an encouragement that can be to young players who are on campus for the first time. That can be a really impactful moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of fun, and it's during our home tournament, and, and this year especially it was fun because we obviously played very well.
Another thing that helps the culture is when you have facilities that you can then recruit to, and we all know about the golf course here at Furman, and we know the kind of schedule that you play, which we're going to talk more about that in just a moment. But in any sport, you have to kind of keep up with what's going on around you, and you're able to open up a new golf building, a new facility. What does that mean? Tell us about that building.
So it just opened. It's the Davis and Faxon Center. Basically, it's indoor training facility. Cindy Davis, one of our longtime great players here at Furman and former president of Nike Golf, and just now she's on the board here at Furman. And Brad Faxon are the main names on the building, and there were so many people that helped us with that building. But what it does is it just kind of puts the final nail into what we needed, to be competitive. Mm-hmm. The golf course is awesome, and we've got a wonderful short game facility that opened the first year I got here, so it's about 11 years old now, and it's an amazing practice facility outdoor, and we just felt like we lost a lot of days to practice because of really bad weather in the past, and so it was always my goal was to have a facility that we could use, both men and women, when the weather was bad, so we didn't miss a day. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to have that facility. So it was great that, Cindy and Brad just kind of spearheaded this thing. And so now we've got this really, really nice indoor space. It's about 60 feet across, and we've got 3 giant doors, but it's all open space. So they can line up, and we can get 6 or 7 kids across there at one time hitting out into the range when it's raining or cold. We've got big heaters. We've got fans. I mean, it's everything you could want. We've got great technology now. We've got a called a swing catalyst system that actually shows your weight transfer in the golf swing, as well as video of your swing. And then we have TrackMan and a lot of other technology in there. So it's really going to help us not only attract better players, but make them better while they're here.
How much of the new technology do you embrace? How much credence do you give it?
Oh, that's my background, is teaching. So I've always, really been involved with technology, and again, some of it is still new because I haven't been in an indoor facility in a while. But TrackMan, I had TrackMan when it first came out, and so a lot of these technologies are so vital because the players that we're bringing in, their teachers use the same technology. Mm-hmm. And so that's one reason we decided to go with the technology we did, is several of our players, their teachers are using this. So it's very easy to kind of make that, transition. And so we can then, communicate better with their instructors.
Jeff Hull, women's golf here at Furman, joining us as we kick off the 2022 editions of Inside Furman Athletics here this week. The first spring match comes up in just a little over a month. Matter of fact, starts on Valentine's Day out in Las Vegas at the show at Spanish Trail. What are you doing between now and then?
Practice.
Yeah,
right? We're going to do a lot of playing, a lot of practicing. Actually, that tournament is we're kind of co-hosting that event. Mackenzie Rain, my assistant, she played golf at UNLV, and we just felt like it was a great way for us to get a West Coast presence. So for the next few years, we're going to kind of co-host out there. And we're excited. None of the girls, I think, have been to Vegas, so it'll be kind of a fun trip as well. But, we got to get in there and get the job done.
So just looking at some of the other matches that'll be coming up, highlighting your spring schedule, the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate down at Hilton Head. February the 28th through March the 2nd. March the 7th, you start the North Florida Collegiate in Jacksonville. You're going to be playing in Augusta at Forest Hills Golf Club March 12th, at the Valspar Augusta Invitational, the Clemson Invitational on March 25th. And then SoCon Championships, NCAA Regionals, and then it starts, right?
Yeah. And I think, we've got a nice break, couple weeks between Vegas and the Darius. The Darius is the premier really college event in the country. I think this year it's actually going to be on the Golf Channel, so that'll be exciting. We've played in every one, so it'd be great to go back. we've got a pretty tight lineup. We go from the Darius to North Florida to Augusta, and they're over spring break. So, the good news is we get a couple events in over spring break that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Right.
So we don't miss any class, which is always a big, big thing, for us. Trying to get in as many tournaments as we can without missing a lot of class. And then obviously Clemson's a really good tournament, not too far away, and we've always enjoyed, being there.
Where are the SoCon championships?
This year they're going to be at the Dye course at Barefoot over in Myrtle Beach. So first time for that. So nobody has seen it. I understand it's a very good golf course. We'll try and get over there and maybe play once before. They have a cutoff as to we can't have practice, so many weeks before. So maybe try and get over there one time just to see it.
Do you like going places you've never been before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think, to me, you really test how good you are when you see a golf course, for the first time. And I feel like, because of the players we have, I always felt like it was always an advantage, to play somewhere new.
Right.
Because I feel like, we have really good players that kind of thrive on that environment.
Yes. It's not like baseball, for instance, where no matter what park you go to, it's 60 feet 6 inches from the mound to home plate. The bases are 90 feet away. Outfield dimensions can be different, but the core of the game is the same. Every golf course you go to is different and unique and all of those other things, right?
And so that's part of, the great thing about our sport. Nothing's the same. The only thing that's the same is the size of the hole. I mean, that doesn't change, but, how you get there is always a little bit different.
Visiting with Jeff Hull on this edition of Inside Furman Athletics as we kick off the 2022 season. So as we get into wrap-up mode here, sounds like things are rolling along pretty well.
Yeah, again, it's coming out of COVID, like I said, it's just a lot more fun. This is the first day back, for the players. And we'll kind of meet today and just kind of go over, the spring schedule, what our expectations are, what their expectations are. I think it's more important, that they get to say, these are our goals. This is what we want to achieve either as an individual or as a team. And then we just have to, keep moving forward and just keep, trying to be the best we can. Yeah,
when he references today, we're recording this and dropping this episode on Monday, January the 10th. Normally we do these on Tuesdays, but we have a department-wide head coaches meeting tomorrow, and as much as I hate to admit it, sometimes Jason Donnelly outranks me. So if he wants you guys that you have to go there instead of here, I can't try to pull rank on the boss.
Yeah, and I think it's just better to get this done out of the way.
Right. Good stuff. Well, listen, man, it's been good to catch up with you again. Anything that we haven't touched on that we need to get out before we roll?
No, we're just, like I said, real excited, for the spring. We're different than a lot of sports in that we don't, we don't have a bunch of home contests. We just have the one in the fall. But, for anybody who does want to, watch us play, look at our schedule. I mean, Clemson is, 30 minutes at the reserve where we're playing. And so it's a good way to come and check us out as well.
Yeah, and a couple of shots at the beach if people want to get away. We've been a little cold up here. So.
Yeah, we got a lot of places that, especially in the southeast, that people can go out.
And as always, they'll be able to follow everything, not only on FurmanPaladins.com, but where else can they follow Stroke by Stroke Play when you go?
So most of our tournaments are always on GolfStat, golfstat.com, and they always have the tournaments listed. And usually when we do a story on the upcoming event, that link is always on there.
All right, so you can check that out as well. Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been good to catch up with you. That is Jeff Hull. We have been talking women's golf here at Furman as Inside Furman Athletics returns following the Christmas and New Year's break. We'll be back again next week with a brand new edition, and by then, we'll also have the schedule when Jason Donnelly will be joining us moving forward over the course of the next 3 months or so. Until then, for Jeff and for all of us here at Furman, I'm Dan Scott. Say God bless you and so long, everybody.